In 2026, a law takes full effect across Europe, and every major luxury car manufacturer spent millions trying to stop it. Bugatti, Lamborghini, Ferrari. Their legal teams filed objections at every stage of the legislative process. Their industry bodies sent letter after letter to governments across the continent. They lobbied harder than almost any automotive coalition in recent European history. They lost. And when this law comes into full force, it will do something that was considered completely unthinkable just 5 years ago. It will legally compel brands like Bugatti to sell their genuine factory parts, not just to authorized dealers, not just to their own service network, but to any qualified independent repair shop that wants them. For the first time in the history of the supercar industry, a mechanic working in a regular workshop will have the legal right to access the same components that Bugatti's own factory technicians use. I want to tell you exactly why this law exists. Because the story behind it starts with one man, one wrecked Bugatti, and a fight that changed automotive history. And I want you to stay until the very end, because there is one specific clause buried in the final text of this directive, one detail that Bugatti's lawyers flagged as the single most dangerous provision in the entire document. Nobody is talking about it. I'll show you exactly what it says at the end. To understand why this law matters, you need to understand what happened when a wrecked Chiron showed up in a British garage. A car that had been written off, a car the industry said could never be rebuilt outside of the Bugatti factory, a car that Bugatti themselves said should have been crushed. Matt disagreed. When he started sourcing parts, he needed genuine Bugatti components, the parts Bugatti's own factory uses. Bugatti refused to supply them. Not because the parts didn't exist. They existed. Bugatti manufactures replacement components for every part of the Chiron. Their authorized dealers can order them. Their factory workshop can access them instantly. But an independent builder working outside their authorized network could not buy them at any price. The money was on the table. Bugatti said no. This is precisely the situation that the EU Right to Repair Directive was designed to end, not just for Bugatti, for every manufacturer, at every price point. The law makes what happened to Matt Armstrong illegal. EU Directive 2024/1799. That is the official designation. It was adopted by the European Parliament in June 2024 with 584 votes in favor and just 3 against. Signed into law in July 2024. Coming into full force across all EU member states by July 31, 2026. The directive has 3 core obligations, and each one dismantles a different tactic that manufacturers have used for decades to control the repair market. The first is the repair obligation. Manufacturers must offer repair services at a reasonable cost and within a reasonable time frame. They cannot refuse to repair a product simply because they would prefer the customer to buy a new one. They cannot use warranty terms to discourage repair. And they cannot use software or hardware techniques to make independent repair impossible. That last point is why Tesla's legal team has been studying this directive very carefully. Their entire service model is built around software control, proprietary pairing requirements, and over-the-air updates that push owners toward Tesla service centers. Under this directive, that approach becomes legally problematic in every EU market. The second is the spare parts obligation. Manufacturers must make parts, tools, and technical repair information available to independent repairers, not just their franchise dealers, at fair prices. The directive specifically prohibits using pricing as a mechanism of exclusion. Charging independent repairers inflated rates while supplying the same components to franchise dealers at trade prices is illegal. This is the clause that kills Bugatti's position directly. Their argument that they simply didn't supply parts outside their authorized network becomes legally indefensible. The third obligation is what legal experts are calling the repair clause on steroids. Manufacturers cannot block the use of second-hand or third-party compatible parts, provided those parts meet safety standards. They cannot refuse to carry out a repair because previous work was done outside their network. And, critically, they cannot design products specifically intended to prevent repair. That last point is a direct challenge to the automotive industry's long-standing practice of using structural adhesives instead of bolted connections, proprietary connectors with no aftermarket equivalent, and components engineered to fail independently rather than be serviced. The law isn't just telling manufacturers what they must do. It's telling them what they cannot do by design. The automotive industry's response was one of the most coordinated lobbying efforts in recent European legislative history. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association, representing BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen Group, Stellantis, Renault, and virtually every other major manufacturer, submitted objections at every stage. Their arguments are worth examining because understanding them tells you where the real interests lie. They argued safety. The Bugatti Chiron, they said, is not a Ford Focus. Its braking system operates under conditions most mechanics have never encountered. Its W16 cooling architecture involves genuinely unique engineering solutions. Independent repairers cannot be assumed to have the knowledge required. This argument has surface legitimacy. But the directive's response is decisive. It does not say anyone can work on any car. It says manufacturers cannot prevent qualified independent repairers from accessing parts, tools, and technical information. Manufacturers still determine what qualifications are required. What they cannot do is make those qualifications impossible to obtain outside their own authorized network. That is the precise line the directive draws, and manufacturers lobbied furiously to blur it. They argued intellectual property. Supplying parts to independent repairers, they said, exposes proprietary engineering knowledge to competitors. The directive is unambiguous. Supplying a part is not the same as sharing the knowledge of how to manufacture it. The obligation covers the component, the one that already exists, that is already being supplied to authorized dealers. Not the manufacturing specification, not the engineering drawings. They argued quality. Parts supplied through independent channels cannot be guaranteed to meet manufacturer standards. Again, the directive cuts through this. Manufacturers must supply the genuine parts, the same components available through the authorized dealer network. Not substitutes. Not alternatives. The actual parts. If those parts are safe enough for an authorized dealer, they are safe enough for an independent repairer. The lobbying failed. The directive passed. Compliance is mandatory by July 2026. The timing of this law is not accidental. The EU right to repair directive arrives at precisely the moment the automotive industry is pivoting to electric powertrains, and EV repair concentrates every problem the directive is trying to solve. The most expensive component in an electric vehicle is the battery pack. Standard EV battery replacement costs between £10,000 and £25,000 depending on the vehicle. For performance EVs, the figure is substantially higher, and every major manufacturer has built software layers into their battery management systems that make independent battery repair difficult or impossible without factory authorization. Individual cell replacement, the repair that makes economic sense when a small portion of the pack degrades, requires communicating with the BMS at a level most manufacturers classify as restricted access. Without the manufacturer's software authorization, the vehicle rejects the repair. The EU's 2023 battery regulation, which operates alongside the Right to Repair Directive, addresses this directly. From 2026, battery packs must be designed for module-level repair, and the software tools required for BMS recalibration must be available to independent repairers. For Bugatti's Tourbillon, their new model, pairing a naturally aspirated V16 with 3 electric motors and an 800-volt electrical architecture, this is not a theoretical concern. It is an immediate reality. The car that represents Bugatti's future is built around technology that, under the 2026 directive, must be accessible to independent repairers in ways the Chiron's technology never was. The clause Bugatti's lawyers flagged as the most dangerous provision in the entire directive. Article 5, Section 3 states that manufacturers cannot refuse to repair a product on the grounds that a previous repair was carried out by an independent repairer or using independent parts. Read that again. They cannot refuse to service a car simply because someone outside their authorized network worked on it previously. For Bugatti, this changes everything. Their existing position, confirmed across multiple documented cases, is that any Bugatti worked on outside their factory or authorized network is effectively stranded. Once an independent repairer touches it, Bugatti washes their hands of it. It is exiled from their ecosystem permanently. This is the position that turned Matt Armstrong's rebuild into the story that it became. Every time Bugatti declined to supply parts, declined to provide technical information, declined to acknowledge that a rebuilt Chiron was something they would ever engage with, they were exercising this position. From July 31, 2026, they cannot do that. If a Bugatti owner asks Bugatti to work on a car that has previously been rebuilt outside their network, Bugatti must consider that request. They must evaluate whether the car can be safely worked on. And if it can, they must do so at a fair price, within a reasonable time frame. They cannot refuse simply because independent work was done. This is not a minor adjustment. This is the end of the two-tier system, where cars that left the authorized network became permanently unreachable. Matt's car will always be a rebuilt salvage Chiron. But the law that is coming says that no owner should ever be permanently locked out of the right to repair their own property. That fight has been running for years. 2026 is the year it becomes law.